Coming up on Network Africa, Zimbabwe's opposition party, MDC Alliance, submits a legal challenge to last week's presidential election. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni appeals to South Sudanese refugees to return home following the peace deal. And Kenya's environmental agency leads a massive operation to demolish an iconic mall in the capital, Nairobi. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. We begin in Zimbabwe, where main opposition leader Nelson Chamisa has presented its legal challenge to last week's presidential election results. Mr. Chamisa says he has evidence to show that he was cheated out of the presidential election. He further stated that the MDC Alliance had all the evidence it needed to mount a credible, sustainable case. The MDC Alliance has to submit its case to the Constitutional Court. If the court decides in favor of the challenge, it could order a recount or void the result. The court must rule on any challenge within 14 days. Meanwhile, MDC Alliance politician Tendai is expected back in court today after he was granted bail. Prosecutors say he falsely declared Mr. Chamisa as the winner of the election, encouraging his supporters to protest against the results. Mr. Biti was deported on Thursday by Zambian authorities after they rejected his request for asylum in a move condemned by the United States. The United States also says it's concerned by reports of the detention and beating of opposition activists since the election. If found guilty, Mr. Biti could face up to 10 years in jail, a cash fine, or both. Let's get more on this story from a senior lecturer of international law at the Nasarawa State University, Mr. Chukwemeka Eze. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Tenny.
Yes, so first of all, let's talk about Mr. Biti's deportation back to Zimbabwe after he was seeking asylum in Zambia. How legal is this move?
It is quite illegal in international law. Under the Refugee Convention of 1951 and its attendant protocol of 1967, there is what we call the principle of non-refoulement. It has attained the level of jus cogens, a principle of international customary law. And by virtue of Zambia and Zimbabwe being parties to the United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951, they are bound by the legal principle of pacta sunt servanda. That is, agreements are meant to be kept. They are bound by the principle of non-refoulement, which means they cannot deport somebody seeking asylum in their country. And in this case, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees had even intervened, and the matter was in court. So basically, it is quite illegal under international law.
So in Zimbabwe, he's been charged with inciting violence, his supporters to go onto the streets, and he's been released on bail now. But President Mnangagwa said this happened because of his intervention. Is this case really about getting justice for the victims, or is the government playing politics?
The government is playing politics because where we have rule of law, the president need not say he has intervened. He should have allowed the law to take its course. The same way he has intervened to let him out on bail, that's how he will intervene to make him go to jail. So he has sold himself out. This is political victimization, but it is not new to Tendai Biti. In 2008, the same thing happened when he announced Morgan Tsvangirai as the winner of the election. And Morgan Tsvangirai actually won that election. But eventually there was a runoff, and Mugabe made sure he ran Tsvangirai out of town to make sure that he did not win the runoff election. So that gave room for a sharing arrangement between ZANU-PF and MDC, for which Tendai Biti became the finance minister in 2009, up till 2013, during the life of that government sharing arrangement. So it's not new. He was tortured at that time. And I think that's why he's afraid of his life. He has sufficient reason to be afraid of his life, and that's why he's covered by the Refugee Convention of 1951.
So these elections were meant to usher a new era for Zimbabwe, but the opposition is alleging that the current political climate is no different to what was seen under President Robert Mugabe when the former leader used to clamp down on the opposition. How true is this? I
agree entirely with the opposition because of what happened. Knowing that the army has not changed, there are no political reforms in that country. I predicted it rightly that nothing would change because the supposed change of November 17, 2017 that caused the military to oust Robert Mugabe, and the people around the whole thing not calling it a coup. It was actually a coup. The military is still in power indirectly, and the face of that military is Mnangagwa, the crocodile, and nothing has really changed. It's not yet Uhuru, not yet freedom for Zimbabwe. So the military is not amenable to civilian authority. So as far as I'm concerned, the opposition is eminently right in this matter.
So let's talk about the government's handling of the post-election violence where 6 people were killed. Shouldn't the government also share part of the blame for deploying soldiers to resolve the protests?
Certainly, the government should be blamed because they had no reasonable cause to have murdered 6 people and injured many, and declared members of the opposition immediately wanted, about 9 of them, of which Tendai is one of them, and even Nelson Chamisa. Chamisa has called it persecution, and many people around the world have perceived it to be so. And there are consequences for their actions. Basically, you will know that this handling will definitely cause the international community not to cooperate with this government, and the signs are there. Yesterday or 2 days ago, the Trump government in the United States of America signed the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Amendment Law. That's statute number 2779. Basically, they cannot access any multilateral financial institution without the cooperation of the United States. And the implication of that law is that the U.S. will not cooperate. So they will pass through stringent conditions before they can access, and they really need lifelines for the soon you begin to see strikes everywhere, and repression will thereby bringing the crocodile to bear his fangs, and the international community will give him the Mugabe treatment.
So the MDC has mounted a legal challenge to the presidential election results. How easy will it be for the coalition to defend its claims of rigging?
I see Kenya repeating itself. I don't see the judiciary in Zimbabwe being so independent as to declare Chamisa the winner, notwithstanding the evidence you present. This military, they are not ready to let go the gains of November 17, 2017. So they are not going to allow any system change. So I fear that the opposition is on a wild goose chase. At the best, at the end of the day, they will lose the case, and the crocodile, that's Emerson Mnangagwa, will appeal to them to come and take some crumbs until the next election for stability. Remember that even before we went far, that the overall leader of the South African Development Community, that's Cyril Ramaphosa, president of South Africa, gave clean bill of health to this election. So basically, you cannot see why Zambia, a sister country, is acting the way it's going. So it means the whole SADC, they will cooperate with this government, at least for now. So they want stability, they want this government on the ground because they know they can't dislodge the military. And instead of putting that country into a crisis, the best thing is to support what they are saying. But the international community cannot be fooled without what has happened now. What we have in Zimbabwe is just civil rule. The rule of law is at its lowest ebb, and definitely in the days to come, Zimbabwe will be feeling the pangs of its actions as it relates with its relationship with the international community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, Senior Lecturer of International Law at Nasarawa State University.
Thank you very much.